All right. Anyways, let's just get started. I'll just say hi, GhazzyTV here, newly made podcast called Sit Down with GhazzyTV, and we just call up a friend and choose a topic. In this case, we're bringing in Mr. Llama, SC himself, the god on Diablo 2, and we're just going to talk about the main topic being ARPGs, Diablo 2, and probably nibble a little bit on PoE, and we'll see where the conversation goes. So, welcome in, Llama. How you doing, dude?
Good. Just waking up a little bit, so I'm gonna be in wake up mode slightly. But here I'm happy. I'm loving life and D2 and RPGs, and I'm happy. I'm ready to roll.
That's good shit. But yeah, it's like I mentioned earlier before we started. It's this podcast doesn't really have any topics or any questions, so it's literally just going to see where the conversation goes. I've personally been playing a bit of Diablo 2 and did Resurrected. It was many years ago since I played the original Diablo 2, but you've been playing it for the past 7+ years on stream at least, right?
Yeah. Yep. I've been playing. I mean, since it came out, just about probably like 2001 when I started. So when like LOD came out.
Yeah.
Um. But yeah, I've been streaming it for like 7 years now, just about. So love it.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, Diablo 2 has always been like the absolute big father figure, if you will, for for ARPGs in general, right? So it's a bit
Yeah.
hard to argue against that in general with the process of things. Where you see how all ARPGs in the world has always been heavily influenced by the game. But I mean, have you felt that Diablo 2 might be a bit outdated for you when we see these new games like Diablo 3 obviously is one, but Torchlight and Path of Exile most prominently lately?
It's really funny to me. Blizzard right now, just the servers have been going down every single day on D2R because too many people are playing. There were hundreds of thousands of users simultaneously logged in one region alone. There's three regions, right? They have NA, EU, and Asia.
Mm.
Um, and they're reaching new highs every single day on the number of players that are playing D2. And to me, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, no game has matched and met Diablo 2 in terms of quality of ARPG that it brings out.
Mm.
Um, that is basically where I'm at, right? And it's just that. Like, I think everybody, and sure, you could say, oh, there's bots running, or oh, there's blah blah blah, whatever, all of that stuff. And I don't know. I don't know if bots are up and running or not. It doesn't feel like it as much because we're not seeing the effects that we normally see from bots or from dupes or any of that stuff, which is where you just get all of the mass spam of those items, right? Whenever you get a big infiltration of like bots and things, all of a sudden Shakos and those things just drop in value because the bots just find them like candy and just start selling them off nonstop.
Mm.
So no, I don't feel like it really is that. What I'm seeing and hearing and whatever is people are just playing this game nonstop, right? And just based on the number of people, the number of views that I'm getting on my stream, on my YouTube, the amount of comments, the amount of stuff I'm seeing all around, the amount of, just like activity, it, it really does feel like there's just everybody playing Diablo 2. And you see people getting pissed off because they're like, I woke up this morning to try and play 30 minutes before I went to work and the servers were down. And it's like, you have a good game when people are waking up to play 30 minutes before they leave for work.
Yeah.
Like that is, and that's what Diablo 2 is and was, right? Like that was me growing up in 2001, 2002, I get home from school, I get on, I play, I go eat dinner, I come back, I play. My mom sends me to bed. I wake up at 2 in the morning. I sneak out and I go play some more. Like this is it, right? Like this is what people do with Diablo 2 because the game is so beautiful. It's so perfectly built. And like you're saying, do you feel like, it's outdated? No, I think no other ARPG has actually even found the success and really hit on what made Diablo 2 the best ARPG that's been made, in my opinion. And now everybody's coming back to the remaster and they're seeing it. You either have people that never played D2 because well, it's old and whatever stuff,
Yeah.
it doesn't look good, yada yada yada. Or you have people that kind of forgot whatever that used to play it. But I mean, I think that's a big thing. People are getting into it, they're starting to play it, and they're going, "Wow, this game doesn't have a billion things going on in it. It doesn't have 500,000 different crafts and splinters and all that stuff and a million ways to play Endgame. But it doesn't matter. I'm addicted to just playing. I just want to sit there and play over and over again.
That's pretty fair.
So I think that's where it's at. I just don't think any game has hit it, has found the formula yet. I've talked about ARPG design in general and stuff, and we can talk about that in a bit. But yeah, just nothing has truly found that same like formula where it doesn't have to be this ever evolving game. It doesn't have to be all this stuff. It can just be such a good game that you beat it and you just want to play it again.
No, I definitely see that. I mean, I was a D2 fan myself back in the youngster days. Till I lost a 98 hardcore necromancer, kissing my ex-girlfriend goodnight. Cried for 2 weeks.
That's why you don't have girlfriends, man.
Yeah, tell that to the debate
Awful.
I just had before the podcast about getting food tonight with my current one. We're apparently ordering McDonald's. So
Wow.
yeah.
There you go.
But yeah, no, I think that like Diablo for me is like Diablo 2 is always like this father figure within ARPGs and always will be, I guess. But it's like I don't know, for me the whole necromancer playstyle just really got stuck with me moving forward in life. Like everything I've ever done in games in general from after Diablo has always been related to this whole thematic or the theme of the necromancer from D2, and it's been like one of those things that stuck with me my entire life within gaming, may it be WoW or Path of Exile with minion builds and whatnot. And I kind of have to agree, like the feeling of playing Diablo 2 for those that many years and growing up with it has really put a mark in how we perceive games, I think. The only problem I really have when it comes to like Diablo 2 is like the end game feels very limited, which is why I like the whole consistently evolving end game, which is probably why I got so stuck with Path of Exile in the end when it comes to ARPG genre in general. But like Diablo feels to me like now when I'm playing it again now with the Resurrected, that the first thing you do is like rushing into getting that magic find, and then you're gonna sit and do the same thing for countless of hours to get those runes, and you do the trading so you can get the gear that you need to for whatever goal you have, right? You play with a goal. For most people at least would set up a goal that they want to achieve. For me, it would be to start soloing Ubers on the Necromancer, the summon build, which requires certain gear, the Merc, and you need the Enigma, you need a couple of other things, which doesn't really require that much, but the things that you do need are the expensive stuff, which takes a long time to grind. Which kind of creates like this stale situation. And I think that's my only problem with Diablo. It's still absolutely beautiful. I love the way it looks and all things around it. But I think a lot of people that came back playing it, that play the game the way I did and do, are more inclined to try out the things they never did back then. Like I was only playing Necromancer back then, and now I'd be more interested in trying out the other things that I'm finally coming back to it. But to my understanding, you've pretty much done everything you can in Diablo 2, right? You've beaten everything on everything, right?
Yeah. But and I think that's definitely a more new age opinion, especially from somebody who, from Path of Exile players and stuff who constantly have all of that end game. Constantly have, every 3 months you're getting a new league, a new mechanic, a new way to deal with it. It's kind of like that's a big thing. For me, I feel like I really appreciate that Diablo 2 doesn't have that. Would I hate if they added a little bit of other end game? Probably not. But the game itself and the thing that I love about Diablo 2 comparatively to Path of Exile or a lot of other games, is the play through the actual game is so solid, right? Like you get 5 acts and 3 difficulties where you just repeat the same acts, but it does definitely get harder. And that's it. It's very simple, yet there's something so beautiful about like running around, to me at least, just like doing Mephisto runs, running through the cows and and Dariel and running in the pits and the tunnels when my characters can go to those locations and doing Bale runs and Chaos runs and all of this stuff. I really love it. And I think it's something that like I love that. I love restarting and creating a new character and beating the game all the way through again with the new character and the new build and all of that stuff. And that's something that I don't feel gets captured very well in a lot of other games. Diablo 3, the campaign is like, what? No, it's just go to greater rifts. Path of Exile, the campaign is like everybody just hates on it and they're like, I just want to skip it and get to the end game, right?
Yeah.
Like whenever you put these end games, nobody wants to play the game anymore. It's like if that's the case, then the game wasn't built well enough, right? Like the game should be built well enough that it's fun to play through. If I go pick up, The Legend of Zelda or Mario 64, I mean, I'm just picking random console games, but like games that are all about like playing through the game, if they just had like a thing at the end where you get your, whatever, and then you play some like end game piece to it, you have your Legend of Zelda, and once Link has his stuff, then he has like these trials to go do, and you just like keep doing trials, and they get harder and harder. It's like, sure, that's great, but the story is still like so fun to play through. The game is still so fun to play through. There's all the different puzzles, all the different challenges, all that stuff, and I just feel like so many games don't have a good campaign story. The journey, the story piece is so important, and Diablo 2 really nails it. And that's one thing I think a lot of ARPGs nowadays don't nail. They focus so much on endgame that they don't really that piece to get there is just like a grind and a struggle and something that isn't fun, you know? And so it's like that's what I love about Diablo 2 and dislike about this new age end game requirement thing is I think so many games, and I'm a little worried even for Diablo 4 coming out because they like put like the character level limit at level 40, and they're like, and then it's going to open up all these things for you to go do. It's like, well, wait a second, you're just what the heck is the point of like the campaign and the story and getting to 40 then if 40 is when just like everything happens? Like, then it's stupid. Then like leveling and all of that is just this dumb grind that you're not going to want to do because it's just like, oh, whatever, just get me to 40 already so I can play the game.
You don't think
That's
that's like
what
a
PoE was to me, get me to map so I can play the game, right?
yeah? You don't think that's like a result of the explosion out of proportion that happened with MMOs in general after like EverQuest and World of Warcraft really grew massively and became when the internet became more accessible to everyone, where the idea of the game was to try to make sure that people stayed and played it with the let's call it the longevity or the replayability of the game would consistently be there to keep people in it. Maybe the lack of faith in their playthrough to make people replay it, but by keeping people in it and just releasing new content to make sure that people would keep buying the next expansion, and that kind of festered into other genres as well. Do you think that would be the case?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is once again where I say that Diablo 2 magic hasn't been recaptured. I think the focus of game design has gone away from making a really interesting, fantastic game and gone more into how do we just make sure people, keep coming back with the like easy wins. And it's like new league, like new end game thing that you got to try, new whatever, right? It's like they constantly the ulterior motive of money of keeping the person playing by releasing the next thing, by having them get to that spot. I think that's the big issue and big difficulty. Is and I don't just think that's true in RPGs. I think that's true in everything. Like so many games nowadays, I think just a lot of them are garbage because the focus doesn't have that initial focus of just, devs wanting to just build the best game and it's just this beautiful game that plays through and ends. Rather, it needs to have a constant income source. It needs to have an evolving scene to keep the person clicking. It needs to have the clickbait pieces that they'll, check in every day, whatever stuff. There's so many like money incentives that can be added in, and even if it's the way of, somebody was saying like, oh, I wouldn't mind if Diablo 2 added, stash tabs and I could buy them, or I could buy skins, all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, just even the small thing of being pestered while I'm in game with ads to buy things already like hurts my gaming experience, Like, it's just like annoying. Like, I just want to be immersed in a game and have a game that's beautiful and not get alerts that are like, buy this new thing,
Yeah.
like get your stash tab here, right? Like all of that sort of stuff. And so it's, once again, any of these financial incentives and things that have really infiltrated a lot of the newer games, while they could be small or whatever, different, yada, 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 I think a lot of them actually hurt the overall feel of the game just being a solid game that you just want to pick up and play through. And so, I think that's where a lot of it's at. The focus has been lost and changed some. And, that's it. Like, there's more money incentives, there's more whatever. And, and I'm not saying that like developing new leagues every 3 months is a complete money incentive, but it definitely, with Path of Exile, it definitely leads to the idea of like, why isn't your game interesting and fun enough that it doesn't need to have a new league every 3 months to get people to come back to it? That's always been my thought. Whenever I talk to Path of Exile players, after like 2 months, they're like, I'm sick of playing Path of Exile, and they all go stream other games until the new league comes out,
Mm.
It's like a game with a billion different modes of content you think would be able to hold people's attention, but like us playing Diablo 2 are never streaming other games because we're having a blast playing D2. Like, I mean,
yeah, I think it's rather admirable. I mean, I used to play Permanent League in Path of Exile, play Standard League for almost 2 years, 1.5 year exclusively. And anytime there were league stuffs, it was less impactful when leagues happened back then. This was 7-8 years ago. And it was like every time there was a league, that a large portion of the community would go there, but not the majority. And then they would come back after 3 months and, introduce those things into the market in the permanent leagues, and then they would go away again when the next league came. And that was kind of interesting. It was more people playing hardcore as well, which ended up elsewhere. And people loved the game, and then they introduced more and more, and then they started this sequence where they introduced new content every 3 months, and there was a lot of pressure in that. And then slowly but surely, they shifted over to having a large portion of the player base playing the leagues instead, and suddenly the permanent leagues kind of died down. And I guess the translation of that in Diablo would be fair to say that the games with mods like Path of Diablo, Median XL, and these games kind of took over that sequence where they were introducing more of a longevity or replayability that is refreshing compared to the same thing after 20 years. How would you look at it before Diablo 2 Resurrected came out? Would you say that the majority of the people playing Diablo played the mods, or would you say that it would have pretty even spread there? So I'm actually not sure on those numbers.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely people that like. I mean, it's difficult right now because you don't have the mods in D2R, right? So like right now, everybody's just playing Diablo 2 Resurrected, and I'm sure some people are still playing PD2 and POD and all of that. But right now, everybody's playing Diablo 2 Resurrected and having a great time. I think a lot of it that worked. One, I loved all of the mods with Diablo 2, and that's something I also really appreciated. Wasn't so much that they were ever evolving and changing the content within them, but rather giving you a little bit of a different taste of Diablo 2, which I think was fun. So, for instance, they'd be like, now, we've added a Val Orb to Diablo 2. It's just like, some minor things. And I think a lot of people appreciated that. There was definitely, I always felt like a lot of the mods overstepped. There was always a little too much power creep going on in a lot of them. So, but I'm more of a purist, right? I mean, there's definitely a lot of people that love the mods and love the changes and love the idea of let's get a new build and let's, change this up so that it's not just Hammerdens running around, but now we have a bunch of other characters as well. And, so I think that's been a big like shift for sure. And there's definitely, some good love in those mods. And once again, I know that I'm not 100% like, like everybody's opinion is my opinion here. I really appreciate vanilla D2 because whenever I do go and play a lot of these mods, I still run into the similar ideas where, it's like, okay, I played some PD2, I played some POD, I played some whatever, and it was great. But now we're getting into this like the power creep is getting a little too big, or it's turning into a little bit too much like what's the next endgame, what's the next change? And for me, that's always been something that I haven't enjoyed as much in a game. That always kind of turns me off from it. I really love the old school classic vanilla D2 experience, and even the ones pre-patches, right? If you go to 109 or 1.0, kind of the different experiences there. I feel like a lot of them are fantastic, but there's definitely some cool pieces in each of the mods. I think one of the biggest reasons that people also really went over to mods and things is because BattleNet just became so infiltrated by dupes and bots that it wasn't like fun. Like I didn't play on BattleNet. I just played vanilla single player, and that's what I did. I speed ran the game. I did playthroughs of the game. I did hardcore. I did crazy runs. All of that stuff, and I had an absolute blast with it. But I wasn't playing online because you go online and it's just bots everywhere and dupes everywhere, and it just was not a fun experience. There was more bots than people, and you could just feel it, right? It was really hard to like interact with others and all of that stuff. And so I think D2R has kind of brought that piece back, at least for now. There might be bots, there probably are bots, but we have more people, and so there's a lot of interaction, there's a lot of people still playing and all of that, and that makes it super fun. And so for me, like, it reminds me of the old school days of getting online and playing that. And I haven't heard anybody who's like, oh man, I just want to go back to a mod right now, right? It's like everybody's having a great time, and I'm sure there's some, but everybody's having a great time minus the server issues there. So I think that's the thing. And we will lose people over time and all of that, and where will it be in 6 months? Hard to tell. But I think it once again is showing the beauty of Diablo 2 and how it can stand on its own and hold its own. I do know that the mods do bring a lot of fun and a lot of stuff as well. And I think a lot of people really enjoy those as well. And especially people that play Path of Exile or play, these newer ARPGs that have that kind of evolving content and have that expectation of that evolving content. Those mods are a great like source for that.
No, definitely. I think like when Diablo 2 came out, it was like in a situation where let's call it the industry, or the gaming industry's meta kind of approach was in a situation where they released like a demo CD, right? You got to play on your console, you played 20 minutes of a game to get hyped into it, and then you got interested in it. You stood in line in queue outside the store when they released the game. I remember World of Warcraft with that game, for example. You bought the game, you came home, you play whatever game you bought, and you played through it, and it was like, oh, this is so cool. You finish it off, right? You might play it a couple more times, and the better the game was, the more times you would play through it, right? But slowly and surely, like the gaming industry kind of evolved further into this replayability. Multiplayer became better and bigger. I mean, I know most of us have played like Warcraft 3, for example. I was massive LAN parties, Dota, all these games, right? Counter-Strike is another game that was really big as well when the internet became more and more accessible for people. I think that this whole need for the LAN parties, but to be consistent and online whenever you chose to, became very interesting. People went in. Other console games like Halo and stuff like that, and the PC Master Race came running with MMO games, MMORPG games, and all these things. It just turned into this whole desire to consistently have the social aspect of it. And from my perspective, it feels like that kind of took over that role. And if you look at like later game releases that have tried to live up to what Diablo 2 provided to the community or to the player base, I think the closest to it we have would be Grim Dawn, which doesn't have that same endgame replayability as most, if not all, other ARPGs is going with. They kind of have this approach that Diablo 2 went with. Have you played Grim Dawn at all, by the way?
Yeah, I think Grim Dawn is a really good game. I think I need to play more of it. I've only played probably like 30 hours or something. I did appreciate Grim Dawn. I actually appreciated Titan Quest, which is the predecessor to Grim Dawn, a little bit more actually, which was surprising to me because I felt like Grim Dawn was the more, it's like the advanced on the systems, but I appreciated the flow of Titan Quest more, and kind of the pacing. And I think that's also a piece to it is the like older days, we're talking about like going back and World of Warcraft when it came out, Diablo 2 when it came out, all this stuff. These games were just hard and long grinds, EverQuest, all this stuff. Like, like to get to level, 60 or whatever in World of Warcraft Classic. I mean, even just playing through the game. You start out, you can go fight like one monster at a time. Like you aggro one monster and then you sit and you eat and then you stand up and you go and get the next one. And if you got like 3 or 4 monsters at level 6, you're just dead. There's like no chance for you. You're just absolutely dead. So like the pace of these games was a lot harder, a lot slower, and it was just very difficult and you had to be methodical about it, but it had a nice like it had a really good feel to it. Like I loved that play. I loved playing through Diablo 2 and running into walls left and right that were just like, okay, I need to go back and farm more and get some more gear and go do 100 more Mephisto runs and, whatever stuff. And like, I loved that piece where you really felt the difficulty of each area. And whenever you leveled, whenever you, whatever stuff, you felt the impact of the skills that you picked up and all of that stuff. And that is something I think is missing for sure today. I think there's not a lot of impact in all of those ways. If I think, once again, I'll go to like Path of Exile when I'm playing through the campaign and things like that. Like, I can't think of like walls that I run into where it's like, I need to go back and farm for better gear and take some time and all of this stuff. It's like, nah, you just kind of like blitz through everything. And, there's a couple bosses, right? Like act, 7, 8, the stupid spin the wheel. What's that boss?
Spin the wheel.
Yeah,
The piety with
in the
the
like
beams.
Sewers. The sewers. No.
Doge.
Yeah, you're in the sewers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he kind of sucks. And there's like a couple bosses that kind of suck, and can like one shot you. Other than that, I mean, I feel like I just kind of like blitz through and I'm doing fine. And there's not I don't run into those walls. And even new World of Warcraft versus old World of Warcraft, right? The new one, like, you can just aggro everything and just murder it all and level up super easy. And the old one, it's like, no, it takes forever and you like level real slow and all of this. And so, I think that same thing goes a little bit with Titan Quest to Grim Dawn, even a little bit. It's like, it's a little slower, it's a little harder, it's a little more like you need to grind some and before you're moving forward and all of this. And to me, that's a really fun part of the game that gets lost in a lot of these newer games. And that's definitely one thing I dislike with a lot of new games. But like I said, to your point with Grim Dawn, I think Grim Dawn is the most true to Diablo 2. That style, that old school ARPG, I think it's the closest one that we have for a new game, and I think it's actually pretty underrated overall as a game. I would definitely say that, like, Path of Exile is like obviously the big one nowadays, but even Diablo 3 and all of this stuff, like I think Grim Dawn really does a lot and has a lot of value that underappreciated. I could see somebody going in there, streaming it, making it bigger, and people getting in on it and going, "Wow, I kind of like this a lot."
Yeah, I think that like my problem when it comes to like the game, because I love when the story is appeasing or appealing enough to make me like want to play through it again and again and again and again. But ultimately, I end up in the situation where it's like, okay, I have done everything. Like I've literally gone through and done everything. At that point, I'm one of the people, which I think it goes with the majority of the players, which is why we see the world's gaming industry look the way it is, right? Where I want something new, right? I need something new, and that's where you either want the new release, expansion, or you're just waiting for the next game to go and do the same thing there, right? And I think that and a big factor in that is like, if you compare World of Warcraft the retail versus the classic reworks, for example. Did you ever play the classic reworks, or you skipped it?
Yeah, I played it.
Yeah, so I mean, something I definitely noticed was when I played World of Warcraft when it first came out, it was the same experience I had when I played Diablo 2 when that came out. I went in, I had no clue what I was doing. Everything was exciting. Everything was amazing. I was like, what the hell is going on? All right, I'm going to spec into this. I'm going to do this. Okay, my character sucks. I got to go back. That was the experience, right? And now with Diablo 2 Resurrected, it's like, okay, I know exactly how I'm going to build my character. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I know exactly what I need. Same thing with World of Warcraft. It's like, okay, well, I just want to power up the levels because the shit happens at the end game. So I'm just going to play the priest. So I'm just going to get a mage cleave and just go, AoE grind a couple of dungeons, sit there for 40 hours. It's sure. The meta gaming was so oppressing in the game, and that kind of created this situation. And I think that it obviously has a lot to do because of content creators to some degree, like us. It's our fault, I guess, to some degree. But at the end, it's the internet, right? We have so much internet information available, readily available. Just a quick Google search, and you know exactly what you need to do. And that kind of created a situation where experiencing the game for the first time is not the same thing as experiencing it again later. And I think that for me, Diablo 2, to stay on topic for Diablo 2 at the moment, it felt so good to get that nostalgia for me, which obviously is maybe not something that you experience considering you've been playing Diablo 2 a lot lately, and lately being 7-8 years back. But it's like the nostalgia is there for a lot of people coming back and reliving those moments, but at the same time the meta gaming is still very, very pressing. And that's why I think, both Titan Quest, I remember playing Titan Quest on console, I believe. And I played it with a friend, and it was like the best experience ever. Where we both said to each other, and I played it, I think it was Titan Quest 2, right? Because they had another one coming out.
Yeah, I think there was a sequel, right?
I think so, at least. I'm not too sure because I didn't play too much of the Titan Quest. But what I do remember is when we played it, we both said that we were going to deliberately not do any research whatsoever, and that decision was like the best ever. I had so much fun. It was the expansion, Immortal Throne. That might be it.
Yeah, Titan Quest 2 is being like rumored of maybe coming.
Okay,
it was the expansion.
Yeah, so it was the expansion. So we basically just said, we're not going to do any research whatsoever. We're just going to dive in, and we only play together. So we met up every now and then, and we play on the console together. We just had so much fun, and it was such an insanely cool experience because that's how most of us played games when we grew up, right? Without having the meta gaming guides and content creators and website news pages and whatnot telling us you got to spec into that one, don't do that, that's useless. And when we played it, and when we were done, and we were like, okay, we're gonna be finished with this. We did some research, and it turned out how terrible our characters were. It was so bad.
It was fun.
Yes.
It was fun,
It was absolutely amazing. But no, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say that's I do miss those days for sure. Like,
do you feel that
great to just play and suck?
Yeah. Do you feel like Diablo 2 has an overwhelming amount of meta gamers, if you will, that like they don't really play
For sure.
games? Because I think that has a major impact, at least online. I mean, if you play it offline solo, then there's a completely different experience, and you make your own experience kind of deal, right? So you can kind of decide, do I want to be effective and just grind it out? But I guess it comes down to like setting up goals. It's something I talk about as a content creator in Path of Exile a lot, with setting up a goal for what you want to achieve with this league or that league. Like every time you want to do and go into play something, just set up what you want to achieve and then do what you can to achieve that goal. And that's the fun, because then you have your process and the progression to get there. And then when you finally get that, it's like, yay, the dopamine kick of achieving that, right? Diablo 2, like my goal is to do solo Ubers on my Necromancer. Like when I get that, I'll be, it's gonna be so cool, right? But again, for me, is like after that, I don't know what else I would do. It's like, what else is there left to do? Farm it till I get a perfect Necro torch, I guess. I mean,
yeah, I mean, this is kind of the thing with Diablo 2, and also one of the things that I really like. I mean, there's a couple points I want to make. One is going back to
can I just stop you real quick there? I can still hear you, and the chat can hear you. I'm gonna get a drink at the same time. Food arrived, so I'll be back, but I can still hear you.
Great. So hi, Chair. So one of the things that I look at is like, let's talk about maybe like movies and the sequels, right? Because you were talking about going back and like nowadays everything is we need the new and all that stuff. But I look at it like the movie industry as well, where everything nowadays is also sequels and all this stuff, and they're always worse than the original, right? It's like, yeah, you can keep releasing new leagues and new and all this stuff, but like, does it always hit? I don't know. I don't feel like it does. I kind of wish they would just have a really good movie come out and be a standalone movie and just be amazing as it is, and then make a new movie that's also really good. Because I think back to, it's like, how many times can I play through a game? It's like, well, how many times can I watch my favorite movies? A lot. I've seen The Matrix like 100 times, right? Like, you just, if it's a good movie, it's so good that you'll watch it again. If it's a good game, it's so good you'll watch it again. You don't need there to constantly be another sequel, even though there is a Matrix sequel coming out. Like a fourth one, right? But you don't always need to have like the new. It's like, sometimes I just like a movie just being good. In terms of game, what to do, I actually really like what you said about goals, because I think that is a big thing. Setting up those goals. I'm going to beat the game solo, self-found on hardcore. I'm going to get to this area. I'm going to make an enigma for this character. I'm going to, create a dueling barbarian. All of those things I think are really strong and really solid, and that's like super fun and something that I've done in Diablo 2 to keep it interesting and fun for me as well, right? I set up a goal to find every single item in the game. That was a really difficult thing to do in Diablo 2. So it took me like 3+ years to do it. And it was great. I didn't grind every day on it, but whenever I jumped in, I'd be looking for it. And I'd always have that excitement when I found one more item, to get to it. I found that last item, I was ecstatic, right? When I found the rarest item in the game, I was, so happy, right? It was just like an absolute blast. So I really loved all of that. And then, that's kind of like, I really think the goals thing is solid. I had one more thing I wanted to talk with it on. Let me think. I don't know. I guess it would just be content and metagamers and stuff now. You can watch, all of my guides and all of this stuff and get a lot of great information on how to play through the game better and all of that stuff. But one thing that I love about Diablo 2 is Diablo 2 is still just a really hard game. And so you can sit there and you can watch me like play through and do a guide playthrough on like how to beat the game. And then you go and do it and get demolished. Hell Act 1 rolls around and like you get one shot and you're like, what the heck is going on? And, it's like, even with all of the help, the game is still just so hard. You still need to like take time to grind, unless you got like friends giving you gear and rushing you through and stuff, then it's a little easier. But if you're like playing through the game, like the game is just really freaking hard. And so you're going to run into a lot of difficult areas, and you can look up guides to help and get you some better gear and get you these things. But you still have to like overcome the challenges. And I think that's something that I really love about the game. Right there is just the difficulty on it is extremely high.
Yeah, that's definitely something I encountered personally as I started playing the Resurrected then with the Necromancer. Like I went through normal Nightmare. It's not very hard in comparison, just a little bit more pressure on the gear to be decent. And then it's like as soon as I was finished with Nightmare, which took a while to beat at the end, I was like, okay, let's just dive into hell and see how fucked we're gonna get. And well, when the first mob refused to die,
right.
I was like, I'm not gonna get my minions.
It's such a big difficulty jump when you go from Nightmare to Hell. You're like, oh, I'm crushing it, and then you step into Hell, and the mobs are just like dead, and you're like, what?
I had problems.
You're a fallen in the blood more. I'm supposed to murder you.
I actually rebooted the game so many times, so I encountered one of those the small Rekinishu guys. So I could get a kill to get my minions started in Hell. That's how I started Hell progression. As I rebooted till I got one of those first. Then I could progress a little bit, but resistance became an issue. So it ended up with me buying Monarch shields and get the spirit going, resistance and whatnot. And when that got rolling, it was easier.
Yeah, then it.
Yeah, but I mean, as a Summoner Necromancer, it's kind of chill. It's very little gear pressure in that sense. You don't really need that much to make it work. So it was kind of smooth and kind of sailed that wave for a lot in my progression.
Summoner is definitely the like easiest build for a new person in the game.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot less pressure in a lot of ways. You don't have to be as skilled. You can let your minions kind of, you just got to level up a lot and then let your minions go around and can kill stuff,
Yeah.
And
then then you get to Maggot Lair.
And then you get to the Maggot Lair, and you all wait in a traffic line to one by one as the one guy at the front can hit, and that is it.
And you're just sitting there waiting and wish you had an Enigma. But that's like I remember asking Breivik about that. I met him at ExileCon in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And I asked him, and his response was like, "Oh, that was not my decision." That was the only thing he said.
I love the Maggot Lair. I hate the Maggot Lair, but I love that it exists because that's also something that a lot of games won't do nowadays. Every zone has like the same amount of spacing, and there's always, and it's like, I love that they just threw a zone in there that was like, screw it. All you Hammerdens and stuff, suck it. Here you go. This is the most garbage area. It's going to be nice for like Bone Spear and a few but like everything else, like it's just going to be this new zone that sucks and you got to learn how to deal with it. And I think it's a fantastic, thing that they put in that added that new difficulty and challenge that you don't see, like I say, in so many games, Diablo 3, right? All the rifts, everything, it's all just like the same spacing. Everything always has enough room for you to move around and cast all your spells. And it's like, why not put a challenge in there, right? Don't do it every zone, obviously, but I really enjoy the zone designs with a lot of it.
I think it's like just adding layers of different type of mechanical difficulty for your character builds to bypass, and it feels like a lot of those. I don't want to say lazy way of doing it because but to some degree it kind of is, right? It's like we want to get another step of difficulty in this area. Okay, what can we do? And they go through the different scenarios, and they come up empty-handed, and it'll be like, okay, well, let's just shrink the zone so you can barely fit. And your character has to crawl through the area to get through. Then okay, but at least in the Maggot Lair for this example, it makes thematic sense at least. So I mean, there's that. But I think that that type of level of difficulty, which is moved over to being more numerical difficulties. Okay, these guys are going to hit harder, or these guys are immune to that, or have less resistance versus those things. And that kind of difficulties came into place in other games and also mods that we see in Diablo as well. So I think that kind of evolved into that stage, and I guess that has a lot to do with how the newer or younger generations playing games, what they are expecting and what they want. Because when we started, gaming industry wasn't as
They don't like the challenges as much.
yeah, they want their instant gratifications. They want to log in and they want to have that legendary. I mean, Diablo 3, you can have all your best gear within the first 24 hours or whatever the timing is.
Right, yeah, you get your free set and everything, you know. I mean, yeah, that's the silly part to me, and it really is. It's definitely more the newer generation and just the games they've grown up on and how games are, you know, hitting to them. And I sound like the old boomer who's like they don't appreciate the grind and all that stuff. But like I really feel like they're missing out on something that is a lot of fun, which is that like work towards it and like face a lot of difficulty and whatever, because there are so many games nowadays that just give you that instant gratification. It's just like bam bam bam, everything's so fast and you just get it, and it's the dopamine hits over and over again, and it's exhausting. And then you're done with the game fast and you move on to the next thing or whatever. It's like there's a constant like gotta have the next thing, gotta have the next thing. And I feel like yeah, there is a little bit of a miss of the really good joy of grinding through and taking the time and facing a zone like the maggot lair. Yeah, it sucks, but when you finally get through it, it's like that much more rewarding. Um, and so that's the boomer in me, but that's where I'm at.
Out of curiosity, if you don't mind the question, how old are you? I think we're about the same, aren't we?
31.
31. All right, I'm just behind you then. I'm yes, strictly behind you. I have to calculate. I'm 30.
Wow,
Took me a few
gotta do the
seconds
calculation. Yeah. You're old when you gotta think about how old you are, right?
Yeah, like sometime
crap,
after
don't mind.
25, you stop bothering. It's like, oh, just another birthday.
Exactly.
Okay. But
Exactly.
I don't know. I feel like yeah, this whole like the ARPG genre, to go into that topic a little bit. I think that like this whole thing with getting to the point where the instant gratification is there. We have a great game that is catering to that type of player, but I guess they catered more to the casual players. They want to go in after work. They fed their kids to put them to sleep. They told their wife that, hey, I'm not going to care about you right now. I want to play some games. Or they tell their boyfriend and do the same thing. And they just sit down and play some games. And that's where Diablo 3 comes in very well, right? They log in, they get the dopamine kicks and whatnot. And they don't get too many of them because they don't have that many hours to play. And they go to bed, go to work, eat breakfast, feed the kids, ship them off to school, and do the same thing the day after, right? And then they get divorced because they neglected their girlfriends. I mean, it's like, yeah, it's a spiral of life, right? And then we have the other aspect where the gamers that wants to have more of a challenge, but they want to have like harder games and whatnot, or harder goals to achieve, if you will. Because Diablo 2 doesn't really have, in my opinion, any super hard difficulties outside of very specific scenarios. Because there's a handful of them. And the solution is just generically grind enough till you have the gear set to overcome it. Obviously, Uber Tristram is kind of gated on a handful of builds, but you can do it on a handful more with the proper preparations. And in the current state of ARPGs, that kind of doesn't really exist in the same sense. Instead, we have other challenges to overcome with other features, but most of these comes in the form of expansion release, new league in PoE, for example, and that's where the challenge is. This is new, now you get nerfed, now you have to think about a new build and come up with those solutions, and there's other steps you have to take to progress and get to the end game where a new boss is introduced, right, and learn the new mechanics, which becomes the challenge. And I think that in a lot of these situations, the difference between the people that just wants that instant gratification versus the people that want the challenge, they kind of come into the position where they're demanding new content because that is the easy and the easy way of getting the dopamine kicks of achieving something new. And right. I guess that's where it comes down to. People want to achieve goals or do something that's new, and that's kind of been etched into the gaming industry for a lot of players, especially the new ones. And then comparing that to what we see with Diablo 2 and Diablo 2 Resurrected's recent success as well, despite the server issues. Like we're in a situation where people go back and be like, whoa, Diablo 2 is such an amazing game. Holy, like, this is crazy. Because my anticipation, when I looked at it from my personal perspective, I love Diablo 2, don't get me wrong. It's like when I saw it, it was like, okay, this game's gonna last 2-3 weeks, then a lot of people's gonna quit, then it's gonna last like 2 months after that, and then we're gonna have, you know, the gods like Mr. Llama himself and a couple of others gonna stick around because that's, you know, that's what they do. Their passion is so admirable. And then we have like the hardcore gamers gonna stick around, and then it's just gonna fall down. Instead, you know, how long has it been since it was released?
It's been 3 weeks, and they're at a new all-time high of players.
That's the result.
I mean, I still expect it to, you know, a couple months fall off, whatever stuff. You know, I still expect it to happen, but it is. I definitely was not expecting new all-time highs and stuff.
Yeah, no, I did not expect that. When you said that, I was pretty surprised. It's cool to see. But I think it kind of goes down to what you were talking about as well. We see a lot of boomers coming back for the nostalgia, of course, and then be like, this is what gaming used to be. Holy, like, wow. I kind of like that. I think that people will remember how they played for 10 years straight and feel like, and enjoy every year of it. And it wasn't like the way, for example, I played World of Warcraft for many years, hardcore raiding and whatnot, and PvPing at a gladiator level and stuff like that. And the years I played World of Warcraft was very detrimental to everything else around me, because it was like, I have to be there in time.
Yeah, you just quit your life.
Yeah, it was, this is my life now. The other things I just do outside of the screen is just to make sure I can keep doing this. And it was like, you know, I got to be there at that time. I got to do that. The team's depending on me.
5 days a week and whatever stuff. And it's like, I have to be there or I get kicked out of the guild. Like, you know, I can't miss. And
exactly.
So I don't have friends. I don't have, it's like.
And it's like with Diablo, when I played that for many years, similar to, well, you definitely played more than me, but it's like in a situation where like you can keep enjoying it, right? It's always there, and you don't feel any time necessity. Well, maybe now as a content creator, this is your career, your way of living, obviously, but that's a different story. But the game itself is in a situation where it's like you can play it and be like, I'm having a good time, and then okay, I don't feel like playing right now, I can do something else. And then, you know, a couple hours later or the day after, a week later they go back and be like, oh, let's keep progressing that character, my Javison is not done yet, you know, all those things. And I think a lot of people are experiencing that now, and coming back to the game and be like, this is what I grew up with, this is what I played, and it's just so amazing, and it's beautiful, and all of its flaws and all of its quirks and everything, and it's still just absolutely there. I think it's cool with the Resurrected games, with all of these games that they have. The industry is kind of shoving out to us now, where they're just making reworks of the old classics. What do you feel about the future of Diablo, though, with the Resurrected? Like, you talked about it going down, that's inevitable, obviously, but what do you feel about the future?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, you know, I think it's great right here. I think if they can get all this stuff ironed out, get the servers fixed up, but having crashing in the game, you know, they gotta do a lot of bug fix and server fix and all this stuff. Like, they've got a lot of work ahead of them for all of this. But when they get into a good spot, I think it'll be really solid. I think a lot of people enjoy it. I actually believe that they'll try and do further content, and like they'll release like a new patch with, you know, like some new rune words and all that stuff. You know, I actually think they'll kind of start experimenting with that stuff maybe in, you know, 6 months, a year, who knows. But you know, I think it's just gonna be solid. I think it's definitely gonna, when it settles down, I think there will be a bigger player base. I think there'll be more people that have come into it and gone, okay, yeah, I really enjoy this.
I mean, they talked about, I know, like, I'm playing TBC Classic in World of Warcraft at the moment, sporadically. And they talked about having like vanilla plus content where they rework in vanilla, and then they're going to go back to that, and then having some changes to it. So maybe that would be something that's happening with Diablo 2, either an expansion to it, or new content, another act, you know, following the PoE theme, and then those things, or maybe just new endgame aspirational type of content that becomes available. Because I think that would be really cool, especially if they, like you mentioned, now they've reached a position where they reach an all-time peak of players weeks after the release, which I didn't think would ever be possible.
No, I mean, I've never heard of a game really that, like, I mean, there's some, but like, you know, they launch and then No, and then 3 weeks later, it's like the player count's even higher. I mean,
No.
expect that launch, especially if something like an old classic game. It's like everybody plays on launch and then leaves, right?
Yeah.
The
That's definitely what's happened.
expectations.
On another note, though, Path of Exile released their reveal yesterday. For me, it was last night. Not sure what time that was for you, but
Yeah,
yesterday.
Scourge, yeah.
Yeah. Have you looked at it at all?
No. What's the changes? Can I still play Essence Drain?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
They're making
Good
massive changes on Tree. It is. As a guide creator, I have my plate full of things to do. I can tell you that much. It's pretty massive. A guy once said that GGG is holding quality of life features hostage, and it would be euphoric for us whenever they released one of them. They basically just tipped the trash can upside down and just poured all the quality of life on us. There's so much in
Really?
It's crazy.
Oh, that's nice.
Like it's massive. Good. You should give it a look at to see what you feel. They've actually started doing something you talked about with Diablo 2 comparisons with playing through the campaign. That's something they actually noted during 3.15, the previously that came out Expedition, where they made some changes where the campaign should be more impactful to play through. So they made a lot of changes to the Act 1, which is where they started, making it more difficult. And it's not like a running simulator.
I remember Act 1 being a little harder.
Yeah, it's like not a running simulator anymore. You actually have to respond to the threats, and you actually have to react to it. Yeah. And it becomes more of a game rather than I'm running through the 10 acts to go to the end game, which kind of goes hand in hand with what we talked about before in terms of how Diablo 2 is doing it. And I think that's really good. The next one they're going to do is going to be Act 2, but that didn't happen with this patch. I think they had their hands full with the other changes that's happening. But it's definitely worth giving a look. When it comes to playthroughs, so something I wanted to mention before was actually the Grim Dawn. Grim Dawn was, to me, similar to Titan Quest, like absolutely crazy in terms of the playthrough. The story, the everything, and some of the decisions you made. I love when in games that has RPG in their abbreviations actually has impactful decisions. I like that.
Has actual RPG elements to it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not an action RPG. It's an action RPG. Like it's actually there. It's not like just shoved in there because there's some features of it. But I remember
that's like me and the inventory, right? Having inventory like actually have sizes of weapons and things.
Oh yeah, all of those things.
Like everybody's like, no, like it just needs to all be the same thing and make it easy. And I hate inventory Tetris and all this. And I'm like, it's like the RPG part, right? Like you pick up a big scythe and it's gonna take up more room than a ring. Like that's part of it.
No, definitely.
You gotta hit on it.
I think that's kind of lacking a lot in most ARPGs, but Grim Dawn did that really well. I think I remember vaguely this quest where someone tells they were injured and they told the character that, hey, I've been injured, he's tried to steal my shit, I should go kill him. And then you go to the person and you get the decision to either kill him and finish the quest, or you can have a conversation with him, and he basically informs you that the guy he injured tried to force himself on his daughter and he defended her. Right. And and those decisions changes the certain aspects of how you progress the game that's going to have a future impact. Decisions like that. I can't recall about anything else, but that one specifically I remember because it was just really crazy when I read it. Yeah. But decisions like that feels like that's kind of needed. But that's also coming from someone like myself that is a very big RPG fan, like Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter Nights, and Icewind Dale, and these type of games. Is that the type of game that you consider yourself enjoying a lot, or do you feel like the action RPG has the emphasis on the action is where the key features are? That's the big thing with it.
So I love the RPG decisions that do get put into games, whether it's a decision like that, a decision around, item, what stuff you're going to pick up and carry versus what you're going to drop, what you're going to use your ID scrolls on, any and all of those things. When it's like, oh, everything drops and it's already identified and stuff, I'm like, this is stupid. Give more decisions in the game that are cool decisions like that, even if they're small. That being said, I focus more around mechanics for sure. So story and stuff for me, I don't care near as much. But I'm very much a core pillars, mechanics of an ARPG, and the action piece and all of that stuff that make it good, you know? So I'm looking at like, what is the combat like? Is the combat solid and meaningful where I'm interacting in a way with different monsters in different ways? What is the trading like, you know, and the way that you interact with other players? What is the PvP like and how that is? What is the itemization like? You know, I very much focus hard on mechanics of the game, the core pieces that build that game in that regard. So strip away the story, does the game still just play extremely well, and have interesting loot grind and interesting fighting and interesting combat and all that stuff. So that's what I appreciate most with any game.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, there's always so many different aspects to take into consideration that creates you put a little bit of salt from Reddit, you get a little bit of tears from the other guys on Reddit, and then you stir that up in the bot, then bam, you get the Powerpuff Girls. It's like I think it's really important to appreciate like the majority of the aspects around the game, and that's what makes the game, right? And Diablo 2 has really succeeded in this perfect mix of things where it's reached the point, which I think has a lot to do with nostalgia as well, where people are even appreciating the flaws of the game and the things that are more. One needs to consider the fact that there's a difference between a difficulty and a nuisance, or something that's more annoying than an actual difficulty.
That's 100% it.
And
if you remove all of the nuisances, if you remove all of the things that are hard or challenging or whatever from a game you don't like, then the game is a bland version of nothing.
Exactly.
No. If you take the maggot layer out, if you get rid of the dolls who explode on you and the gloams, if you make them more visible so there's no worries there, and if you make it so, like, right, if you get rid of all that stuff, then the game sucks, because then it's like it's a bland playthrough. So yeah, people often mistake challenge for bad, difficult for bad.
Definitely, and I think that also goes hand in hand with the younger generations expecting to be rewarded for logging in. The daily login rewards, by the way.
That's it, man. There's so many games out there nowadays that give you your daily dopamine hit just for participating and logging in, and congratulations, you played the game. Here's the rewards. Play 5 games today and you automatically win rewards, It's all just, the marketing department has figured out the scheme to get you to play that one more game and stay on the game a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And it ruins a little bit of the actual game, overall of what's fun. It's just, being marketed to and taken advantage of a little bit.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's something that too many companies are adopting, and it's just like a never-ending spiral. That's why for me, like, Diablo 2 just feels like such a nice breath of fresh air, right? It's like, this is what it used to be. I don't need the other things. This was good. When I dropped that better, I don't remember which rune it was, one of the higher runes, I was like, whoa, shit, this is whew. That dopamine kick was better than most things I've experienced. I just absolutely loved it.
Welcome to the
so another thing to keep the topics on Diablo 2, is that the trading in Diablo 2 is something that always put me off a little bit, because it's like there's no straight line of you trade this is a generic currency like gold, for example, in most games, but that's me coming from Path of Exile, where there is no gold, where the generic trading currency is like 2 different types of crafting orbs, which becomes the main kind of trading orb. But in Diablo 2, it's not like runes are in such an insane quantity that people use that as the craft. Well, like, I sell an enigma, well, give me 200 runes. That doesn't exist. I don't know, but I like the barter approach to it. But how do you feel with the trading economy in Diablo 2 as a player who's played it so much, and also now as a content creator? Like, what's your take on it?
No, I mean, I like the bartering aspect, and I like a little bit of the fact that you have to be a little creative in it, right? Because the thing is, yeah, when I'm trading in Path of Exile, it's like, how many Chaos Orbs is that? How many Exalts is that, right? It's a flat thing, and you just go in and you trade that exact number, and that's it. And a little more boring in trade, right? Yes, it's a little more precise and exact and maybe a little bit easier, but it's a little more boring. I like when I go in and somebody says, "Hey, I want your Tal's armor," and I say, "Sure, I'd like a Sir rune or a low rune for it," and they go, "I don't got that, but I have an Ohm rune and a Shaco and an Arachnid mesh. Would that count?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you know what? I'll take those. That seems good." And so we make that sort of trade, and it's this like weird combination of things. Then I'm like, I can trade these things off for like roughly these values, and those items are always kind of fluctuating in their own stuff. And it's like there's no precise exact value, and there's no precise exact way to always trade it across. And so you just get offers, and you have to consider if you want that offer. And then at the same time, maybe you're really wanting, a Death's Fathom or something for your Blizzard Sorceress, and somebody brings in a perfect one, and you're willing to pay a little bit more for it because you just want it so bad. And it's like, yeah, it might be worth a burr rune, but but they want a burr rune and an SOJ, and okay, sure, you know what? Like, screw it. I'll overpay for this a little bit because how often am I going to find this in the game and all these things, So I really like having that sort of trading regard, which is why I don't like JSP and these like off trading sites as much, because it removes a little bit of that fun aspect, in my opinion, of all the barter when you're trying to get everything nailed down to the exact science. Yes, you can have it where it's like, this is worth 1150, gold or whatever stuff, right? And like, that's it, and that's what it's worth, and that's worth 1250. So you need to add an rune because that is the exact value of this. And it's like, you can do it, but I just feel like it's more fun when you're just going in and you're finding the little values in between things and stuff. And it's like, well, this person wants this a little bit faster, so I can provide that to them and get a little value here, and they can offer this, and I think that item is going to be worth more in a week, so I kind of want that one, whatever, right? Like, you get to play stocks a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Like I
I think it's a
remember,
fun time, but it is a little complicated.
yeah, because like when I played back in the days, I played solo. And I played hardcore solo after years of softcore, and I always played offline, and that's it. That's what I did. So now when I came back for Diablo 2 Resurrected, I started playing online, and the ladder, and when that's gonna come later, and then with the trading for me was like, whoa, what the hell is going on? Like, I want a Shaco, and I'm going to the trades websites. I was like, oh, let's not use JSP. I can't be arsed with that. It's too much with ARPG excitation and stuff like that. I was like, oh, I can't be arsed with that. So there was a bunch of discords, not one, but a bunch of discords with trading access. So I went into two of them, and I just posted I want to buy a Shaco. And suddenly there was people offering me it. And I was like, yeah, okay, let's see how much they want for this. And they started talking about these weird, high runes that I haven't seen in for 10 years playing this game. Like, yeah, right. I don't have that. But, I got this or this. And they'll be like, nah, it's not worth that much. So this whole meta thing came up. But I did encounter quite a lot of people after quite a lot of hours in the game. I did encounter a lot of people that did have this barter approach to it. Be like, okay, well, I don't have that, but I do have this and this and this. Or what are you looking for? Maybe I have something, we can strike a deal, right? And that was so fun. Like, I never experienced that before. So for me, trading in Diablo 2 was new for me with Ressurected. And I think that has a lot to do with, because when Diablo 2 was new for me when I was younger, the the internet, it was a dial-up. So, I played Tibia back then. So, you're about to die. I scream at my little sister to pick up the phone. So, that was the meta. So,
connect me.
Exactly. And it was expensive as well. So, I didn't get to play that much. But, so I never really traded in Diablo 2 till now. And that experience with trading with the barter is something I've always loved. I always loved that, and that was something that was really big within PoE in the early days as well. Before this whole generic theme set in, where Chaos Orbs is the fragments and Exalted Orbs is like the big ticket currency, right? And then you have the mirrors for the super end. But it's like outside of that, it transformed into Chaos Orbs and Exalted Orbs being like the let's call it the currency in terms of gold, which would be the closest relation to it. And Diablo 2 doesn't really have that, and because of the quantity of things, like you couldn't even set a specific rune to be this is the standard trading currency. I mean, I don't know. I actually love the
all
trading.
the runes kind of are trading currency, but they kind of all fluctuate in value over the course of the time as Hodos are good early, so Vex kind of has more importance, and then it'll drop a little bit, and low runes will go up in value, and Jaw and Burr are always the like golden standards kind of, but there's so few Jaw and Burrs that and a lot of items trade so so much below that value that you can't even use that as like a standard, right?
No.
Oh.
And something else is with the Diablo 2 with the runes as well. Is like if you have one rune that you would deem to be worthy of your item as your price tag, so to say, and someone offers like, well, I can give you 2 of the rune below that. That's not like that's a big difference as well. Because you need 3 and another fragment of whatever jewelry thing.
Right.
To get that rune that you expected to get out of it and stuff like that. But you also have the aspect that you talked about with the Stork, with overpaying for things. That's definitely something I'd done already, and I felt really good about it. Sure. And I got the same as well. I got a call to arms, really bad BO roll on it, and he chucked that in and a couple of other things for I don't even remember what I had. Tal Rosh, I think it was the Tal armor. And there was a bunch of other things as well. So then he shoved that in, and I was like, yes, I don't have to buy the runes for this now. No, I'm going to use this till, okay, before Ubers, I'll buy a better one, but, I can use it now. And that was so fun, even if you came to this position where you feel like, well, I overpaid or I underpaid. It doesn't really matter because that person got what
you wanted.
Yeah, and I got something that upgraded my character because it's not this instant gratification approach where it's like, yeah, I'll just buy that and my character's done, which is kind of the state of trading approach in like Path of Exile, for example, which I play a lot, in a position where I get to my levels and I'll just start buying the things I need and then my character's done and I don't really do much more with it. Diablo 2 has this slower progression of your characters, which creates a longer enjoyment of the character before it's finished, even though the end game is very different compared to new age version of ARPGs, I guess. Right. I don't really have any other specific topics that I wanted to bring up. I did notice your headset though. That is a really nice looking headset, dude. It's really good. I like it. Is
it the same one you got?
Oh yeah.
It's nice. I love it, man. It's I never had a wireless headset before this, and I thought I wouldn't like it, but
I tried so many.
Oh no.
Yeah, I tried so many. Nice. I just got a headache from up here.
Yeah, the bands and things.
Yeah.
There's so many headsets that give me headaches. When I was streaming at Gamescom, this is back in like 2016 or whatever, and it was like super cool. I got to go out there and stream, but we would stream, like 4-hour sessions or something. That headset gave me the biggest headache every single day. I'd be like moving it around, so by the end of the day I'd be like this to try and not have the pressure on my head. I was like, oh yeah. So I completely agree. I love it so much. I've worn it like 24 hours straight for 24-hour streams. Never feel it. It's like
it's the best thing. The battery as well. Holy shit! They advertise 8 to 10 hours, and I don't change battery for 16 hours of music playing.
Oh yeah,
I fucking love it.
Oh, yeah. It's great.
Yeah. Did you have any other like topics or any questions or anything that you want to talk about? Anything?
No, I mean I feel like we covered. D2 Resurrected. Go play it.
Definitely.
They fix the server stuff, man. That's the main point.
The servers is still down today as well.
I mean, they go down every day at like 8 a.m. because that's when everybody's on.
Oh yeah, the
Asia
prime
wakes
time just
up
kicks
and
in.
Or Asia is asleep, Europe is at getting off work, and America's waking up, and so every single person gets on at like 8-9 a.m. and it just overloads it.
That's kind of sad. I wanted to play some. My plan was to play during the weekend, but Path of Exile released the Scourge announcement and patch notes came out of the blue, so I've been kind of stuck with that since last night. Lack of sleep, but you know it is. But I'll definitely be revisiting Diablo 2 Resurrected soon enough. I'll probably do some off stream because I'm actually having a lot of fun with it, and it's a lot through nostalgia, but the new experiences that I didn't get when I was younger, and I think a lot of people should definitely try the game out. Well, I mean, I'll just do a little quick round off in that case. For those of you who don't know, this podcast, we're just casually calling it Sit Down with GhazzyTV and just inviting a friend or whatever. And we're just talking about literally whatever. It's a friendly conversation with someone. In this case, we have Mr. Llama. I see the god himself in Diablo 2 and talking about Diablo 2 and ARPGs in general, and that's literally what we do. There's no topics. The only thing we're going to talk about is gaming, and we choose a game. It's like, okay, let's just talk about this and see where the conversation goes. Hope you guys had fun watching, and thank you so much, Llama, for coming in and doing this with me. Appreciate that.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime, dude. Where can we find your stream on YouTube?
Everything's just Mr. Llama SC. Twitch.tv, YouTube, Twitter, Mr. Llama SC. Nice and simple.
Perfect. Any OnlyFans?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, I'll be looking for that one. I'll leave the links to the description below for Mr. Llama as well. Guys, hope you guys had fun watching. Thanks for tuning in, and this will be on YouTube. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and check out Mr. Llama's YouTube in the channel. Descriptions below as well. So until next time, stay safe, keep rocking.